The air crackled with anticipation, not the normal kind. This was thicker, full of more brain power than usual. We were in a gymnasium, yes, but not for basketball. This was war, a war of words. Rows and rows of tables stretched across the floor. Scrabble boards gleamed under the bright lights. The Dyslexic Scrabble Showdown was about to begin. People think it's easy Scrabble. Not this time. All the rules out the window. Letters jumbled, boards flipped, utter chaos, which oddly enough made perfect sense to some. The crowd was something else. A mix of laughter, gasps, and the occasional snort filled the air, creating an atmosphere that was both electric and slightly absurd. Nerds of all shapes and sizes. You had your classic bookworms, the ones who could recite entire passages from obscure novels, and then there were the tech geeks, always fiddling with some gadget or another. Think your grandma in a knitted sweater with a world's best speller badge. She was the epitome of old-school charm, her eyes twinkling with a mischievous glint as she recounted tales of spelling bees from decades past. Or a teenager who looked like he hadn't seen sunlight in years, glued to his phone. His fingers moved with lightning speed, texting, tweeting, and probably hacking into some mainframe, all while barely looking up, but not playing games. Oh no, this lot were checking dictionaries. Serious business. They flipped through pages with the intensity of someone defusing a bomb. Every word scrutinized, every definition debated. And the players? Don't even get me started. Each one was a character in their own right, bringing their unique quirks and eccentricities to the table. There was Agnes, who brought her own dictionary stand, custom-made, darling. She treated it like a sacred artifact, polishing it meticulously before each game. Then there was Bob, who kept muttering about consonant blends under his breath. He was like a walking, talking phonetics lesson, his mind constantly churning with linguistic possibilities. And who could forget Susan, who insisted on wearing her lucky Scrabble tile earrings? She swore they brought her good fortune, and who were we to argue? They certainly added a touch of flair to her ensemble. But the star of the show, at least for now, was a scrawny fellow with glasses thicker than my Aunt Mabel's homemade jam. His lenses magnified his eyes to an almost comical degree, making him look perpetually surprised. His eyes crossed so badly, he could probably see into next week. It was as if he had a built-in time machine, his gaze perpetually fixed on some distant future event. This was Kevin, and he was about to become public enemy number one. Not because he was a bad guy, but because his skills were about to turn the competition on its head. Everyone knew it, and the tension was palpable. The room held its breath, waiting for Kevin to make his move. Kevin, bless his cotton socks, had just won. It was a moment he had dreamed of for years, practicing tirelessly in his room, surrounded by dictionaries and word puzzles. He'd played a word so long, so complicated, even the judges needed a lie down. They had never seen anything like it before, and it took them several minutes to verify its authenticity. The crowd, however, were not impressed. They had come expecting a fair competition, but Kevin's words seemed to defy all logic and fairness. They mumbled and grumbled, convinced he'd made it up. Whispers of cheat and impossible floated through the air, creating a tense atmosphere.
Balderdash!
Shouted one particularly irate woman in a floral dress. Her face was red with anger and she looked ready to storm the stage. But Kevin, oblivious to the hostility, launched into his victory speech. He was on cloud nine, completely unaware of the storm brewing around him.
I'd like to thank the Academy,
he began, before being drowned out by a chorus of coughs and boos. The audience was having none of it, their disapproval growing louder with each passing second. He soldiered on, rambling about the beauty of language and the power of vowels, his passion evident in every word. He spoke of the endless possibilities that words could create, the stories they could tell. Completely unaware of the daggers being glared at him from the audience. To him, this was a moment of triumph, but to the crowd, it was a moment of outrage. Just as the crowd's outrage reached fever pitch, a hush fell over the room. From the back, a figure emerged, tall, lanky, with a pair of glasses that made his eyes look like they belonged on a flounder. This was Barry, the second-place champion, and he was not best pleased.
Hold your horses, Four Eyes. Nobody, and I mean nobody, beats Barry the Fishman 2 years in a row.
The crowd gasped, and so it was decided. A winner-takes-all showdown, Kevin versus Barry. The crowd went wild. This was better than the finals of the National Spelling Bee. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a Scrabble tile.
the first word was played QI.
The crowd gasped. Who even knew that was a word? The game went on, each player trading blows like prize fighters. Words like Ziziva and Quadjack were thrown around like confetti. Sweat dripped from Kevin's brow. The tension in the room was palpable, and every eye was glued to the stage. Kevin could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, making each second feel like an eternity. Barry's glasses were constantly sliding down his nose. He pushed them up again and again, a nervous habit that betrayed his anxiety. The stakes were high, and everyone knew it. The crowd held their breath. The air was thick with anticipation, and then it happened. A collective gasp echoed through the room as the final scores were revealed. The final scores were tallied. A tie! The room erupted in a mix of cheers and groans. No one had expected this outcome, and the excitement was electric.
Hold on a minute, folks. Just when everyone thought it was over, a voice cut through the noise. Seems like we've got ourselves a three-way tie. The crowd's confusion turned to curiosity. What could this mean?
All eyes turned to the source of the voice. Standing there with a single eagle feather in his long black hair was a figure of authority and mystery, was a man with an eye patch and a mischievous glint in his one good eye. His presence commanded attention, and everyone waited to hear what he would say next. This was Running Water, and he was ready to play. The room buzzed with anticipation. What would happen next? To be continued. The room was still buzzing from the announcement of a three-way tie. Kevin and Barry exchanged nervous glances, while Running Water stood calmly, almost as if he had expected this moment all along. The tournament resumed with renewed vigor. Every letter placed on the board was met with gasps and murmurs from the audience. Kevin's strategy was methodical, Barry's moves were swift and cunning, but Running Water, he played with an uncanny precision that seemed almost supernatural. The competition was fierce, and the room was filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Each player had their moments of glory and despair. The final round approached, and the atmosphere was thick with tension. In the end, it was Barry who emerged victorious, his final word sealing his triumph. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Kevin, though disappointed, shook Barry's hand with a sportsman's grace. Running Water, however, stood silently, a cryptic smile playing on his lips. As Barry celebrated his win, Running Water began to walk away. The room's attention shifted to him, curiosity piqued by his sudden departure. Just as he reached the exit, something extraordinary happened. Running Water's form shimmered and twisted, his human guise melting away to reveal the mysterious figure of a skinwalker. Gasps and whispers filled the room as Running Water, now in his true form, turned to face the stunned crowd one last time. With a final knowing glance, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving everyone in a state of shock and wonder. The tournament may have ended, but the legend of Running Water, the shape-shifting challenger, had only just begun, to be continued.